Feeling stuck? Yearning for more? You're in the right place. This is Midlife Moxie with Nicole, where you're going to get a weekly dose of courage, clarity, and maybe a little bit of chaos as we navigate our best chapter yet, midlife.
Welcome back to Midlife Moxie with Nicole. I'm your host, Nicole, and I'm so glad you're here with me today. We're going to be diving into a topic that I think touches the heart of many of us, and especially as we're navigating those midlife years, and that is the search for purpose. But I want to approach this from a completely different angle than what you might be expecting. I want to dismantle the myth of one true purpose. It's that singular lightning bolt calling that we're all supposedly meant to find. You know the one I'm talking about. It's the pressure that we feel to discover that one perfect thing, or maybe your destiny, or your calling with a capital C. Instead, I want to explore with you how purpose is actually something much quieter. It's more nuanced, but more authentic and often found in the most unexpected places. This episode really is an invitation to give yourself permission to let go of pressure, feeling all the shoulds, the comparison traps that we tend to fall into, or any of those nagging feelings that you're somehow behind or that you've missed your chance. It's about recognizing that your purpose isn't something you find like a buried treasure, but it's something that you live into day by day with each choice you make. So if you've ever asked yourself, what's my purpose? And then felt a wave of anxiety, overwhelm, or even panic wash over you, this episode is especially for you. If you've ever felt like everyone else seems to have figured it out, but you're still searching, this is for you too. And if you've ever wondered, is it too late to find meaning or even make a difference? Stay with me, because we're going to explore this all together. So let's start with the fundamental question number one. Why does the search for purpose feel so distinct, so urgent, and so potent in midlife? What makes it about this particular life stage that makes the question of meaning feel pressing and immediate? I feel that for many women, midlife represents a profound shift from a life that was primarily built around serving the needs of others to a life that can finally be lived more for oneself. It's that pivotal moment that you get to ask yourself, perhaps the first time in decades, what do I want my life to be about now that I'm living more for myself? And I feel that there are several interconnected reasons why this comes up now. There's an identity reconstruction happening. For decades, many women have built their identities around roles that are fundamentally about caring for others. Roles as a mother, a wife, a caregiver. As children leave home, as relationships evolve, the question then emerges, who am I when I'm not primarily defined by caring for others? This can create a tremendous freedom, but also a deep uncertainty. There's a sense of possibility, of finally having space to consider your own desires. But there can also be a real disorientation when you've spent decades knowing exactly what was expected of you. There's a unique intersection of accumulated wisdom and remaining time. By midlife, you developed deep self-knowledge that you hadn't had earlier in life. You've learned from mistakes, you've seen patterns, and maybe your values now are clearer more than ever. You now know what energizes you and what drains you. But simultaneously, there's an acute awareness that time is finite. This creates urgency around making the remaining years truly count and around not wasting time on things that just don't matter. And I cannot ignore any of the biological shifts that are happening. The hormonal changes of perimenopause and menopause can trigger a feeling of almost a great unleashing. There's that saying, it's feral and 50. There's truth to that. Because women in midlife around this age report feeling less concerned with pleasing others and more drawn to their own authentic truth. And this biological transition often coincides perfectly with a psychological readiness for reinvention. Search for purpose at midlife is fundamentally different from the earlier decades you've lived. In your 20s, it was really about finding yourself. And at this stage of life, it's more expressing your authentic self. It's less about external validation and more about internal alignment. Younger women may seek purpose through achievement or approval from others, but in midlife, women often seek it through contribution, creativity, and congruence with their deepest values. So this makes the search both more focused because you have more wisdom about what matters, and yet more complex because it really takes courage to honor that clarity. One of the biggest obstacles in this journey is what I call that one true purpose myth. It's a collection of damaging pressures that can leave us feeling paralyzed. So let's break these down because I feel that naming them is the first step to disarming their power. There's the singular calling fallacy. This is the belief that there is one perfect thing that you're meant to do. And if you haven't found it, you're failing. But this completely ignores that purpose can be multifaceted, seasonal, and ever evolving. So many women torture themselves thinking that they've missed their calling while they were focused on raising children or building careers. There's the productivity trap, the idea that your purpose somehow has to be professionally significant with a title or monetized. It can look like the pressure to start a business, write a book, or create something impressive to put into the world. But what if your purpose was mentoring young people or creating a beautiful home or just being a steady presence in your community? These quieter forms of purpose are just as valid, but within the framing of our culture and how culture sees the worth of this, it can make these feel just a little more illegitimate. There is the passion prerequisite, the assumption that purpose has to feel like a burning passion. And somehow, if you don't feel that fire, something's wrong. But purpose can be much quieter. It can be a steady pull towards what feels meaningful rather than an all-consuming obsession. There's timing pressure, the voice that tells you if I don't figure this out now, it's too late. And I feel that this ignores some of life's most meaningful chapters because people have made changes in their 50s and 60s and 70s and beyond that were significant. The fear of being too old is a dream killer. There's a transformation expectation, somehow that this belief of finding your purpose requires a dramatic life overhaul. This could look like leaving a marriage or quitting your job or moving cross country. This all or nothing thinking overlooks how purpose might emerge through small shifts within your existing life. There's a uniqueness demand, the pressure to find something completely original. But purpose often lies in bringing your particular combination of skills and experience to the common human needs. You don't have to invent something new. The reality is that purpose at midlife is less about discovering some hidden destiny and more about consciously choosing how to spend your energy based on everything that you've learned about yourself and what the world needs from you. So, if we let go of those myths, how do we actually approach this? The good news is that you have wisdom inside of you to draw from. It's just a matter of realizing it and accessing it. So instead of asking yourself, what is my purpose? Because this question can feel huge and intimidating. Try asking gentler questions. Questions like, where do I already feel most alive? Or when do I lose track of time? These shifts allow you to go from seeking something external to recognizing that something is already present inside of yourself. I've talked about future visioning before on previous episodes, but I feel that this really works well because you do have experience to draw on. You can take time to imagine yourself 5 years from now. And if 5 years seems very abstract and far, bring it down to a smaller time frame. It might be a year, or it might even be 6 months or 3 months. How in this time frame that you see yourself in the future are you feeling deeply fulfilled? What are you doing? Who are you with? What does it feel like in your body? And then work it backwards. Think about what elements created that satisfaction. Your unconscious mind often reveals priorities that your conscious mind has not even registered. There are also moments that are meaningful that can be your anchor. Think about a time you felt truly authentic, useful, and deeply aligned. Close your eyes and go back to that memory. Relive it and allow yourself to fully experience it. What were the physical sensations? What emotions were you feeling? Was there just a feeling of rightness in that moment that it just felt good? These are all parts of your internal compass. And pay attention to the language that you speak, particularly around the word should. Because should is a language of obligation and external expectation. What if you replaced should with could? The shift from I should be more passionate could be worded as I could explore what energizes me, which allows an open space for authentic discovery. And using progressive questioning, starting broad, thinking about what matters to me, and then getting more specific. How could that show up in my daily life? And then taking actionable steps. What's one small way I could honor that this week? This prevents overwhelm while building momentum. The key here is trusting your own inner knowing rather than seeking external validation. Authenticity is our North Star. All of these tools that I've just given you point to a central theme: authenticity. Because at this age, it isn't about finding the right answer. It's about honoring what is coming up authentically true for you right now. When you've spent decades following scripts written by family, culture, or career, purpose becomes the practice of finally asking, what do I want? Not what should you want, or not what would look good, but what do you genuinely want? Authenticity and purpose are inseparable. For many women, the sense of purpose was always there, just has been buried under layers of shoulds. Think about the woman who felt drawn to helping others heal, but ended up becoming an accountant because it was practical. Her purpose didn't change, but her willingness to honor it did. This is why purpose work at this age in midlife kind of feels like an archaeological excavation, because you are uncovering desires and values that have been buried under more acceptable choices. Often the vehicle for authentic expression is creativity. See a previous podcast episode that I talked on that. And this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to become a poet or a painter. Creativity can be expressed in how you create beauty in your own life. It may be in your own home, or it may be your ability to develop innovation at work, or find new ways to work and support within your community. There is a powerful reframe in shifting what should my purpose be to asking yourself, how do I want to feel when I'm living fully? This moves focus from external achievement to internal alignment, giving you a sense of rightness when your daily choices are reflective of your deepest values. And maybe this is why purpose does feel different at this stage, because it's not about proving yourself anymore. It's about expressing yourself. It's not about meeting expectation, but about honoring what's real for you. So this brings us to what very well might be the most important message of this entire conversation we're having. Your purpose does not need to be grand. It does not have to be perfectly figured out. And it doesn't have to change the world or impress anyone. It just has to be uniquely and genuinely yours. So many of us are paralyzed, waiting for that moment, the moment of perfect clarity before we take action. We're waiting for the clouds to part and the angels to sing to us, and for all of our purpose to be revealed in its glory. But purpose is not something you discover while sitting still, waiting for inspiration to strike. Purpose is something that you live into. It emerges when you start paying attention to what energizes you, what breaks your heart, what you can't stop talking about, what feels authentic and right to you, even if it doesn't look impressive to anyone else. Your purpose might be creating a home that serves as a sanctuary for your family and friends. Or it might be using your hard-won experience to guide women through challenges that you've already navigated. It could be bringing your particular blend of wisdom and humor to whatever work you're already doing. It might be advocating for a cause that you care about, or being the person in your community who truly sees and encourages others, or finds ways of bringing more beauty into the world. None of these purposes will make headlines, but all of them do matter deeply. So the urgency isn't to find your purpose. The urgency is to stop waiting for permission to live purposely right now. Start with what pulls you today. Follow what feels alive. Trust that midlife has given you all the wisdom to know the difference between what is authentically yours and what you think you should want. You've earned the right to make choices based on what feels meaningful to you rather than what looks meaningful to others. And that isn't selfish. That's how you make your most authentic and powerful contribution to the world. When you're operating from a place of genuine alignment, when you're honoring what's real for you, you show up differently. You have more to give because you're not constantly fighting against yourself. The women who feel most fulfilled aren't the ones who have found the perfect purpose. They're the ones who gave themselves permission to live in alignment with whatever matters most to them, even as it continues to evolve and change. Let me share with you my personal story that I think illustrates this journey perfectly, because it can show you how purpose can unfold in unexpected ways when we stay open to who we really are. This is the story of me, a woman who started her career in nursing leadership. I was managing staff, creating care plans, and working within the confines of the medical system. It was meaningful work, absolutely. Work that made a real difference in people's lives. But I had this unshakable growing frustration with the system itself, asking questions that weren't exactly welcomed by my managers. And this feeling was leaving me unsettled, and it was stirring beneath the surface. And over a decade ago, I began my own exploration. I was open to learning different perspectives and practices, to new ideas and new ways of understanding myself and how I move in the world. That openness led me to new people, new research, and new possibilities. And this led me to human design and the gene keys. And I feel that at that phase of my life, I was learning who I truly was from the inside out. And that was a pivotal moment for me because I now could connect the dots. So I started applying my new self-knowledge in the corporate role that I had at the time. And I watched the proof of this work unfold. My natural gifts, my connection building skills, the attention to detail, the flexibility. I could see how these made me shine in ways that I had not fully recognized before. And this success led to growth opportunities that surprised even me. My managers saw that I was ready for advancement, even when I wasn't, and I had less experience than others on my team. But I also learned something crucial about myself through this process. I was designed to be a leader who informs, a manifester who uses her voice. And I was meant to outgrow roles, managers, and even companies. This wasn't a flaw or a problem. It was part of how I was authentically designed. I had to trust my intuition to know that when I had accomplished all that I could in a role, it was time for me to move on. And that wasn't always easy, but it was essential to staying true to who I was. It required courage to leave security and familiarity behind. And eventually, I felt the strong pull to leave that safe route entirely and step into being an entrepreneur. It was scary, but it felt right in a way that was undeniable. Today, every day, I am learning, but I am also steadfast in knowing who I am and how to serve authentically. After decades of giving myself in ways that sometimes made me feel small, betting on myself to succeed in business while helping others make meaningful change, I don't take any of this for granted. My purpose, I realized, is being true to myself while leading by example. That's how I connect with others while building something that is genuinely mine. Reflecting back on my journey reminds me of how quietly it did start, how it unfolded through openness and curiosity rather than a big dramatic revelation. And it honored both my gifts and my authentic way of being in the world. That is my invitation for you today. Your purpose does not have to be grand or even a singular thing that changes the world. It just has to be genuinely yours. It's not about finding the perfect answer, but it's about giving yourself permission to live in alignment with what matters most to you right now, even as it continues to evolve. So I ask of you, what's pulling at you today? What feels alive? What small step could you take towards honoring what's real for you? Maybe it's having a conversation that you've been putting off, or exploring something that's been tugging at your curiosity, or simply to give yourself permission to say no to something that drains you, and yes to something that energizes you. That's your homework this week. Start there, because that's where your purpose is waiting. Not in some distant future when you have it all figured out, but in this moment, in what draws you, in what feels true and authentic. Your purpose is already present in your life. It's just waiting for you to notice it, honor it, and give it space to grow. Thank you for joining me on this journey today. I hope that you'll allow yourself permission to trust in the wisdom that you already hold, to honor what's authentic for you, and to remember that your purpose doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. You don't need anyone else's approval to start living more purposefully right now. Please be kind to yourself, trust the process, and remember that you have everything you need inside of you. I'll see you on the next episode of Midlife Moxie with Nicole Haight. Before you go, I want to make sure that you know how to stay connected to this work, because what we have talked about today, this is just the beginning. If you're sitting there thinking, holy shit, she just described my entire life, and you want to know exactly what patterns are running the show in your life, I've created something specifically for you. You can head on over to my website, www.nicolehaight.com, and take the assessment, which sacred pattern is running your midlife. It's a free diagnostic tool that will tell you exactly where you are in your own conditioning and what your next steps should be. There's no fluff, no generic advice, just precise information about your specific patterns. Because here's the thing, you can't interrupt what you can't see. And most women are trying to change their lives without understanding the deeper nervous system conditioning that is actually driving their choices. If you want to dive deeper into these conversations and connect with other women who are also done performing their way through life, you can join my private Facebook group. Link will be in the show notes. And it's where we have conversations, real, raw, unfiltered truth about women in midlife. And if you want to be on my VIP list for weekly doses of truth that maybe help keep you accountable to your own transformation, there is a link in the show notes, but there's also a link at my website, www.nicolehaight.com, where you can sign up to be on my email list. This isn't a typical newsletter filled with tips and inspiration, though I do include that from time to time. This is a newsletter where I share hard truths, insights, raw, unfiltered things that are just not socially acceptable on social media. And these awarenesses that you can take away from what I share can be a catalyst for change. So I invite you to sign up. And if you're ready to go even deeper, because you might be tired of all of this surface level work and you really want a whole system level transformation, everything you need to know about working with me is on my website, www.nicolehaight.com. I'm not a coach, and this isn't coaching, and it's not therapy, and it's sure as hell not spiritual bypassing. This is a resurrection of the nervous system. And this is for the woman who is ready to stop performing and start living. You can also follow me on Instagram, Threads, and YouTube at I am Nicole Haight, where I share reminders about conditioning and women and midlife, confronting truths and desires that are just frankly not up for negotiation. So next week we will continue to have discussions that likely will make some of you squirm. It is what I'm best at. But if this episode shifted something for you, do me a favor and leave a review. Not because I need an ego boost, but because there are women out there who are Googling, why do I feel invisible in my own life at 2 a.m.? And your review might be what helps them find this podcast. Your review could also be the breadcrumb that leads another woman out of performance prison and into her own resurrection. So until next week, remember, you don't need permission to want what you want. You never did. That was just conditioning dressed up as consideration. You're a woman in midlife. You don't need permission. You just need to have desires and wants and the ability to go after all of them. So stop asking and start claiming.